thanks everybody so much for being here with us today. We really are glad to have those of you that are participating in our inaugural PlanRVA Regional Webinar Series. So we're really excited about this new program that we're launching in fiscal year 2021 and are happy to be featuring our emergency management program today. So we've got a great panel of speakers that are going to be talking with the group today about emergency management and what that coordination looks like in the Richmond region. So we're really glad to be here. Katie Moody is our Regional Emergency Management Coordinator here at PlanRVA, and she works with a variety of different representatives from around the region in the public and private sectors through the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. We have several members of the leadership team from that alliance here with us today to talk about how regional emergency management preparation, coordination and planning happens at the regional level and what it looks like in each of our communities. So just by way of orienting you, we've got a panel of speakers. We will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A buttons today. So if those of you who are participating as attendees on the webinar would like to submit any questions, please feel free to do so. You can raise your hand or enter into the chat and we'll either field those questions as we go along or at the end of the session. This is a webinar that's scheduled for an hour today, so our group will give you some high-level updates about what's happening with the Emergency Management Alliance, how it's structured, and the different activities that are going on. And then hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for some Q&A and topics for a preview of things to come into the future. So with no further ado, Katie, I'll turn it over to you. Please feel free to introduce yourself and then the other members of the panel.
Sure. I'm Katie Moody. I am the Regional Emergency Management Program Coordinator with PlanRVA. As Martha mentioned, I work with her and our staff there on planning projects, but specifically I do emergency management, program management, and I've been in this position since March 2018, so almost 3 years. And the other folks here on the panel are the executive team, I guess we would say. Most of them are here that I would typically work with on projects and committees and grants and things like that. And we'll get more into those later on in the discussion. But I wanted to let everyone introduce themselves and kind of talk about what their, I guess, home position is in their departments, and then also what they do with the Alliance. They might chair a committee or be on the executive team. So I'll start, we can start Bill, we just kind of do alphabetical order if you guys want.
So good afternoon. My name is Bill Lawson. I'm with the City of Richmond Office of Emergency Management. I've been here for about 5 years. Currently, I am the Deputy Coordinator for Emergency Management working for Anthony McLean here in the city. Prior to that, I worked at the State Department of Emergency Management for almost a decade before coming to the city, where I worked several different jobs and roles. Currently, I am the chair for the Emergency Management Alliance for Central Virginia. We just like to call it the Alliance. It's a little easier, sounds very Star Wars oriented, so it helps keep us a little motivated. So as chair of the Alliance, I was voted in last year, and lucky me and my Vice Chair Jess have gotten to deal with COVID, trying to pull this region together through that. So that's been interesting and challenging all at the same time, working at the local level and then also at the regional level. Katie? You're muted.
I'm muted. Paul, you're next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Hunley. I am an emergency planner for the City of Richmond's Office of Emergency Management. I have been with the city now for 6 years. Prior to coming to the city, I was with the American Red Cross Greater Richmond chapter in disaster services management for 15 years. I currently chair the Mass Care and Human Services Subcommittee for the Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. And we'll discuss a little bit more later in our session today what that committee's projects and goals are. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Great, thanks, Paul. Ben, do you want to talk a bit about your finance chair position?
Sure. Ben Rupert, City of Hopewell Emergency Management Office. I'm the emergency manager for the City of Hopewell. Worked for the city for a couple months shy of 20 years. I've been in emergency management for about 13. I am the finance chair. I was also a past chair of the committee, and I'll get a chance a little later to talk a little bit about what the finance chair does. Thank you.
Great. And Robert, we'll go ahead and get you next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Robert Williams. I work with Hopewell Emergency Management Office. Been here coming up on 3 years. Prior to that, I retired from the Federal Fire Service over at Defense Logistics Agency. There, I retired as the training chief, having filled previous roles as the operations chief, worked in emergency management there, and also worked at VDM, Virginia Department of Emergency Management, as a reservist and adjunct instructor. And I'm the training and exercise subcommittee chair. We'll talk a little bit about what that committee does later. Thank you all for having us. Katie?
Great. Sarah, you're on here too. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Sarah Stewart. I manage environmental programs and projects at PlanRVA. But as you'll hear in some ways through the conversation today, and as Katie can attest, Katie and I actually interact a lot. The environmental program and emergency management has a decent amount of overlap, and we'll probably get to that a little bit later, especially if we have some time at the end to talk about hazard mitigation plan and resiliency planning and opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And our other panelists that I believe she's not on at the moment, or maybe she's going to hop on shortly. It's Kay Hill with New Kent County. And she does, she is the vice chair for the Public Outreach Committee, and she's our planning subcommittee chair as well, and assists us with some of the planning projects that we'll talk about. So if she hops on, we'll kind of have her come in and give an introduction and also chat about some of her work right now. So now I figured we could segue into giving kind of a basic introduction to the Alliance. Just some background and some of our functions and kind of how we started. And I actually have a PowerPoint handy enough that I had made for a previous presentation that will work well for this also. Kind of gives a little bit of background on the UASI portion of our history as well. So I think you guys should be able to see if I can pull it up to make it full screen. And Bill, also, if you want to add any, side comments to any of the historical information. So, well, we'll chat about this in a minute, but we actually used to be called Central Virginia Emergency Management Alliance. Our acronym was CVMA. So a few of you all may have heard that before, maybe in some previous discussions, and we rebranded. It's been almost 2 years ago now to Emergency Management Alliance of Central Virginia. So really we just did a word swap, but it means the same thing. We also got a new logo around the same time that PlanRVA rebranded and did their logo revamp as well. So EMACV, or the Alliance, initially started out, well, firstly, this is the map that kind of gives an orientation of the Alliance. So the VDM Region 1 and the Alliance region actually consists of 25 localities in Central Virginia region. So it's quite a bit larger than the PlanRVA planning region. So we actually have portions of Crater Planning District Commission, and I believe a couple others like Northern Neck and Louisa County isn't also in a different planning region. So this map kind of captures the entirety of where those outer localities stretch out to. In terms of the background and the UASI background I just mentioned, so UASI stands for Urban Area Securities Initiative. This program was actually created by FEMA in 2003 following 9/11 to assist high-risk regions in the U.S. with enhanced emergency preparedness resources, which basically means funding. So funding for programs, positions, equipment, things like that to enhance the area's security against terrorism. So we were actually considered one of those regions for several years up until about 2012, I believe. And Bill, correct me if that's not, that's a little off or a year off. But and that particular year is when we lost our UASI designation, which basically means that FEMA took a look at us and decided that we weren't as much of a risk yet, or anymore. So we weren't ranked anymore in that UASI list of areas throughout the country. So in order to kind of maintain that partnership, though, the folks who were in the alliance at the time decided to maintain that voluntary association of organizations and stakeholders, particularly the emergency managers, to continue emergency preparation, response, recovery, mitigation, coordination, project management, all those kinds of things in the region. Bill, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so that's definitely where our start came from. Just to give folks a little bit more background on the why our map grew larger. In 2008, when we reached that status of gaining that UASI grant, that urban area grant, instead of just awarding it for that metropolitan statistical area, this region said, hey, we're a lot more than this group. We want to make it this whole area, which included Louisa and Cumberland. We wanted to make sure that we were inclusive of those groups in that region when we were looking at how we could spend some of those funds. These are people that we've worked with over the years anyway, so we wanted to make sure that it was fair and equitable. Once they started to change their criteria up at FEMA, that is when it kind of the money went away, but the value in doing this kept us going. So we changed and went from that urban area working group into this Central Virginia Emergency Management Alliance. And we've kept pretty much the same membership, which is really good. We all know one of the things that drives folks is money. So that's one of the reasons that when FEMA put out that urban area funding, they put that funding in with the caveat that you have to have a regional group that makes decisions on it. Our regional group has been going for almost 10 years past when we've gotten money to do that, which I think speaks to the value of the regionalism that we've kind of put on in this area. Northern Virginia, of course, has a UASI group that continues to be funded, and Hampton Roads continues to be funded on and off over the years with that UASI funding. We have to apply for all our grown grants and apply for grants as a region here as well. So that's just one of those key things that's kind of driven us and kept us together.
Thanks, Bill. I think I added Kate on here. She just texted me. Kate, are you able to unmute yourself and talk? Might take her.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. Can you see me?
I see your name. I don't see a picture of you. We just went past the introduction portion. So
yeah,
if you wanted to do that now, you could stop for a second if you wanted to go ahead and give your introduction.
Okay, my name is Kate Hale. I am the chair of the planning committee. I'm the deputy coordinator of emergency management in New Kent County, and where I've been since 2017 and have been working closely with the Alliance since I came to the region. Do you want me to go into the committee itself at this point?
I did mention that you were chair of planning committee and vice chair of public outreach, but we can chat, give more detail on the projects and things a little bit further on.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay. We were just doing a background introduction to the Alliance and how it started as UASI and how it's kind of evolved from there. So I'll pull up the PowerPoint again. So as I mentioned, in 2019, we rebranded as Emergency Management Alliance in Central Virginia. So this is our old logo right here, the shield, and we've rebranded with the navy and light blue check mark. And that actually is to kind of mimic the ready.gov, which is FEMA's, I guess, public facing preparedness site. And they have a check as well. So that's kind of to mimic that similar kind of same theme. So some of our stakeholders and members include emergency managers, of course, first responder personnel, local and state government, federal government, nonprofit, and private sector partners. And that's definitely not a comprehensive list of partners and members that we have. We've got a really good variety of folks from universities and military and public health, all different areas, it seems, federal level folks who kind of pop in every now and then. Bill, did you have anything to add in terms of the membership or who we kind of typically see at the meetings?
One of the things that we've been doing a really good job at is trying to make sure that we're not just keeping it in our own silo of local emergency managers. When that grant came out, it was geared towards local jurisdictions, which forced the local emergency management staff together. We've widened that as far as we can. We look for folks from private industry, institutes of higher education, basically anywhere that we can find folks that work in the field of emergency management to make sure they're included, to make sure that we've got that contact list and that we've got a wide net of peers that we can look to make sure that we're got folks that can look over stuff for us or bounce ideas off of. It's really grown. We've got quite a few people from different fields that fit that emergency management portfolio.
Thanks, Bill. We'll talk more about why we think the Alliance is unique in more of our kind of open discussion time. But in terms of some of the more objective highlights, the Alliance is unique because it's a voluntary group. So all the emergency managers, partners, and stakeholders that we mentioned volunteer their time to promote this regional coordination in addition to their typical workload. So you see all the folks in the panels are actually at their, their home offices, at their departments or cities or towns. So they're doing all this sort of remotely, as well as in addition to their full-time jobs. We have participation representation from the majority of the 25 localities plus other partners. So we actually will typically see, and I try to keep track of this too, the majority of those 25 localities in that map do participate in some way or form. And we really try to, push even to get the rural areas to, to send people up to our meetings and participate in the committees and projects. So it's really great that we still have, those smaller areas that choose to participate so heavily in projects and event planning and things like that, in addition to, like the core kind of central region localities as well. So the Alliance is also unique in the state of Virginia. There aren't any other emergency management groups that coordinate as closely or on as a consistent basis. So we do have, other emergency management regions in the state, the other VDEM regions, but this one is particularly unique because we coordinate so closely. We have so many meetings. We've got the various committees that we'll talk more about, and coordinated projects and grants that we apply for every year. We also have our charter, bylaws, MOU, and other agreements. And you're welcome to read any of those if you're ever interested. This is just a quick structure of our meetings. We have monthly Alliance meeting that's led by our executive team. Bill is the chair. We don't have the vice chair or secretary here, but Ben is the finance chair. So we have monthly larger Alliance meetings, and then we have our 5 subcommittees that meet monthly. Of course, now we're meeting virtually. but those are led by the committee chairs. I think now we can probably get more into what Does anyone else have anything to add to what I just said? The greater group of panelists folks. Okay. Something else I can share really quick. Pull up my screen share here. It's our Emergency Management Alliance website. We mentioned the rebrand earlier, and I'm sure you all are familiar with PlanRVA's rebranding a new website, but we actually got a new site at the same time that's coordinated really well with the PlanRVA site. But this is just, I just pulled this up, the About Us page, because it has the map and the list of all the localities. But we actually worked with a branding company, a marketing company to build this and, you know, just kind of give some important relevant information about Central Virginia to our stakeholders as well as the general public and our constituents. So just some information about disasters in the region and how you can prepare, any type of training opportunities, information about the Alliance. And our address is actually plansafe.org. So we're really proud of this. It's a great resource for emergency management in the region. And we're, you know, kind of constantly updating it or adding new things that we feel are important to share, also through our social media and email and events and things like that. Of course, we can't have too many events right now, but this is definitely something that we wanted to share and kind of showcase that reflects, you know, all the work that we do in the region. So I know we had mentioned the UASI history and that funding as part of the Alliance, you know, kind of backbone over the course of its history. But in terms of our funding in the last couple years and these days, we actually get the majority of our support from the State Homeland Security Program. And that's also a program funded by FEMA and managed by the on the local level by the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. So we have various grants that we apply for every year that reflect different projects or the work of some of the committees that they'll, you know, kind of chat about here in a bit. For instance, our FY20 grants total $279,275, and that's actually the largest pool of money that we've received to date from just the Homeland Security Program, which is really great. So usually the committees will either partner or they'll have a, you know, project or, you know, event that they want to, you know, get funding for, training for that year. And we'll apply, we'll do several different grants, usually whether it's related to sheltering or training and exercise or marketing for each committee. And we'll apply for those all together. And that pool of money is what we use to do projects and work throughout the year. And our prior grant years, we've typically still gotten around the $270,000 to $275,000 range. So that's been really great over the last 3 to 4 years that we've consistently gotten that amount of support from the state to continue the work that we've been doing. So at this point, Martha and Bill, I didn't know if you guys wanted to give, you know, any highlights on the connection between PlanRVA and the Alliance, and anything related to maybe the grants or just, you know, kind of the history and how it's evolved over the years.
Before we dive into that, can we just do a quick, like, why does this matter?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's important to bring up because I'm not sure who makes up our audience, but I think a lot of us understand how folks work in silos. That's something I think we deal with a lot in emergency management, is people that are very comfortable in their own little world and don't necessarily want to branch out or figure out how their world might not or might impact others and how they're doing business. I know that's a challenge for us in our communities, trying to make sure that we've got that open line of communication, that we've got the right people at the table to have those discussions. One of the reasons that this group is so important is because it widens that field so much. We had somebody that moved into our school, the Richmond Public Schools Emergency Management Office. We were able to put them in touch with other folks in other jurisdictions who they had no contacts with because of our relationships within that within the alliance. So it's helpful for that information side of it. As Katie stated, we look at a lot of grants regionally. So we do get a good chunk of grants out of it applying regionally, which aren't guaranteed funds, which really help push those projects in the area. And the projects that pushed in the area are things that support the whole region. A great example of that is there's a preparedness guide that's put together regionally for us to hand out to our residents in our own jurisdictions. But as a cost savings, instead of 25 different jurisdictions going and making their own version of this book, we've got one that's kind of put together that's generic that we can all hand out, that's purchased with grant funds regionally, that then supports individual jurisdictions and individual groups within those jurisdictions. So I think it's a really important thing to consider, that when we go through all this and we have these discussions, that we kind of keep that, you know, what is the end game here? And it's really to kind of grow that understanding, bring more people to the table, make sure that we're able to help coordinate with each other, not in a time of emergency, so that we have those contacts and people and folks that we can reach out to when we are in dealing with some sort of disaster in one way, shape, or form. So I just think that's a really good, you know, why are we here? Why does this continue to move and grow, even though there's actually no funding behind it and we're seeking out our own money? And I think it's because a lot of us feel that this is a great way to make sure that we're making the best use of federal dollars with, you know, it's taxpayer money. So we're doing the best we can to make sure we're making the best use of that, while being inclusive and trying to build that more up as a regional community, more so than just, hey, I know somebody over in the next jurisdiction that might be able to help us out. Martha, you want me to start talking about the Alliance and how it worked out with the planning district?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So it was something that came about when those urban area grants first came out, was there had to be some sort of fiduciary agent for those. The state didn't want to play that role for these regional groups, just because then they would be playing that role for multiple regional groups. So it ended up falling that a lot of the planning districts were brought in to become the fiduciary agent for those urban area grants. So that's really where the relationship in Central Virginia started, was, hey, you guys have money, who's your fiduciary agent? The Hampton Roads area, who had already been getting money, had been using the planning district out there. We're not even going to talk about Northern Virginia. They've got enough money and enough groups to manage all the things that they need to. So we kind of followed that model here as well, while it expanded out to include the Crater Planning District as well. We wanted to make sure that we were inclusive in that aspect, but the fiduciary side comes through PlanRVA. So over that time period, that has kind of evolved. I know when there was a lot more cash, there were several employees over at the planning district that helped with planning, with the grants, and with program management and different aspects of what we do. As the funds started to dry up, so did some of the positions. So we still do our best to try to fund what we can, but the planning district now supports a lot of those roles that were originally grant funded. And then we do our best, I think, to try to make sure that we line up with some of our initiatives. So one of the things I think that the PlanRVA does for us is help, hey, have you talked to the transportation group, and try to work those different aspects for us that, we're looking at from that emergency management perspective. Martha, what do you have to add to that?
We've been really lucky, I think, to be able to be a part of this effort. As Katie mentioned, it is a really unique structure, the Emergency Management Alliance itself being a voluntary group, but also, as Bill mentioned, planning district commissions in the Hampton Roads area and in the Richmond region do support these initiatives. But I think we are a bit unique in the way that we've been able to continue to sustain the staffing support. So it's been a really nice relationship, and we've been able to, as Bill mentioned, really leverage those opportunities to think about emergency management and response in a holistic manner. That's one of the things that I think planning district commissions bring to the table, is to be able to help connect the dots, not just geographically, but topically. And I know Sarah will talk about that a little bit later in the session, and how emergency management ties so closely to environmental issues and resiliency in our region. But it's been a great opportunity, and I think we feel really lucky to be able to coordinate with the members of the Alliance and to be able to provide that staff support through Katie, who really leads that effort, but then through a number of different staff members who from time to time can get pulled in to help with other projects.
Awesome. So now I wanted each chair to have just a minute or so, or a couple minutes, to give an overview of the committees that they run, and talk a little bit about some of the ongoing projects they wanted to highlight or explain in a little bit more detail. So let's see, Paul, we could start with you if you want to talk a little bit about mass care.
Certainly. Thank you very much for the opportunity. The Mass Care and Human Services Committee's mission is to enhance regional capacity through the acquisition of shareable resources, the development of partnerships, and a commitment to exercise and test those capabilities and strengthen regional cooperation. Our committee has long recognized and worked to address the risks represented by the variety of natural and man-made hazards our region faces, and whose impacts might result in the need to provide shelter for those that have been displaced, food for those that are hungry and incapable of preparing or providing meals for themselves, the distribution of supplies that enhance or support recovery, and other mass care and human support services. The committee is a diverse group of local government representatives, as well as state and non-governmental organizational partners. Our committee participants could be described as the frontline workforce responsible for the provision of mass care and human services within their local or agency plans, and include representatives from both state and local departments of social services, state and local health and mental health authorities, and nonprofit governmental partners such as the American Red Cross, the Baptist Association, the Baptist General Association of Virginia, Feed More, Salvation Army, and community animal rescue teams, just to name a few. Some of our committee goals and projects include, of course, we're always looking to increase committee participation by expanding our regional reach to include more voluntary, private, and governmental partners with a vested interest in mass care and human services support, providing regional access to trainings that address emotional and traumatic impacts related to exposure prior to, during, and following disasters, such as our 2021 project, trained 7 regional facilitators on surviving and thriving, a training on how trauma, both experienced or recognized in others, can impact someone's ability to cope with or support those that have been impacted by disaster. These trainers are committed to and will then be available to offer this training in a virtual format in person when our environment improves and allows for such. Providing access to training that engages agencies and partners who care for the non-human victim, pets, domestic animals, during emergencies, such as our 2021 project to offer a regional pet sheltering course and exercise, partner agencies such as animal care and control officers, volunteers, and other animal support focused government and non-government organizations. We host a regional forum that supports information sharing related to best practices and challenges during or as a result of emergencies, with the mass care and or human services element involvement. We hosted our very first regional mass care symposium in 2018 with close to 200 attendees, and have plans to host similar symposiums annually once our environment improves for in-person gatherings. Our committee is committed to drafting and exercising regional agreements that engage partners and support effective service delivery through efficient allocation of available resources. And we've already secured regional support agreements for meal preparation and distribution support with Feed More's Community Kitchen, the Salvation Army of Central Virginia Command, and the Baptist General Association of Virginia. All of these enhance our region's collective capacity and strengthens our position in feeding those in need while efficiently and effectively using the available resources within the region so that no one goes without or competes for resources. And then finally, we're committed to developing and drafting regional plans that are specific to mass care and human services actions that promote regional cooperation and consistency, such as a regional feeding plan, a family assistance center plan, a family reunification plan, a family recovery center plan, as well as community supply distribution plans. I'll be happy to answer any questions during the Q&A that you might have, and I'll stand ready to answer them as I can. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Very busy in mass care. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about planning and public outreach?
You're muted, Kate.
Kate, I think, yeah, you're muted.
I apologize. I'm having all sorts of difficulties with Zoom today. Katie, if you would go ahead with the public outreach, and I'll address the planning part of it. In general, if there's anything you want to add to planning or to the public outreach, essentially what that committee does is it engages in activities and collaboration with all the other committees and various partners to be able to get messages out to the community. That would include the disaster guide that Bill mentioned earlier, which is now being updated again and which has been borrowed and replicated by other planning districts because it's such high quality, as well as partnering, for example, with sports venues to do special events in the community, which the outreach committee has done over a number of years. That process right now is suspended because of COVID, but I'm sure will be a popular activity and help the committee and the Alliance reach out to much larger segments of the community than any of our localities could do individually. The Planning Committee basically supports collaborative planning to address regional efforts where that is appropriate, or to bring the localities together when it becomes a more efficient process for saving communities dollars and effort. An example of some of those plans are the Family Assistance Center plan, the Recovery Framework, which was the project for the past year, and the Emergency Managers Recovery Framework workshop was held in March of 2020. And one will be held for the CAOs and city managers and their critical teams their recovery teams. And that'll be held in March of 2021, again, having been deferred this year because of COVID. We are looking at a business recovery planning effort for sometime in the late spring of 2021. We've been working on a re-entry plan to facilitate post-hurricane evacuation coordination of Hampton Roads evacuees, which have to come into and back through the eastern parts of Region 1. So we've been working on that. New Kent, in fact, took the lead on this, and we're now awaiting a response from FEMA and their contractor to be able to finish this up and make this something that'll benefit the entire region. The hazard mitigation plan kickoff is tomorrow, and that is a huge plan which benefits the whole region. It'll also bring Crater into the process this year as it did in the past. And that is a massive effort. And what PlanRVA brings to all the localities by doing that is, I think sometimes we often take that for granted, but that is a huge undertaking. Because we have success in raising funds, grant funds to supplement our efforts, it's a significant benefit to all the localities not to have to duplicate efforts all throughout the region, but to be able to collaborate. So effectively, we can do more, we can do it better, and by leveraging these funds, we're able to do it much more cost effectively than any of us could do it on our own. We also have a wide network of not only public organizations and agencies and stakeholders and subject matter experts, but we also have a wide variety of private stakeholders and interests who work with us on various projects, NGOs, and Paul, you went through a laundry list of those, and we could all add a long list to supplement what you brought up. But that allows us to not only do the work effectively, but to think outside of the box and to have that kind of refreshing energy come in from a variety of partners that enrich what we do and how we do it. So essentially, it also gives us the capability and the flexibility to deal with new and emergent threats and issues. We have not been overly involved in the COVID response because that's been going well. We have talked about some things we might do as a planning committee, and that still is possible that will happen. But again, it's that ability to leverage people and resources together in a way that makes the planning function of our committee and PlanRVA, I think, such an extensive and outstanding resource for the region. And on that, I'll pass it on.
Thanks, Kate. And thanks for doing both committees. Robert, you're the last chair. If you want to chat for a minute or so about training and exercise.
Absolutely. As everybody knows, with the COVID situation that we're all in, it's a little bit harder to do training than the way we normally would do training. What we've looked at as the Training and Exercise Committee is alternative ways to deliver training through the use of technology and non-traditional methods. We've assessed some of the course topics, course activities, and course actions that have to go into training, and looked at ways that we can do that in new ways, again, using Zoom technology, Teams, Meets, and other projects. The primary responsibility of the training committee is to support the membership personnel and their agencies in fulfilling their training and exercise requirements, some of which are required by law, some of which are local requirements, as well as preparing them for the future. We work with several agencies, including the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, the National Consortium of Classes offered through FEMA, as well as other training and exercise organizations. One example of our recent activities is that we supported VDEM Region 1 with their training and exercise planning workshop by sending out a questionnaire to all of our membership, and then we gathered up the results of that questionnaire to assess the training needs of our people, and we forwarded that to VDEM Region 1's office to develop the plan for next year. One of the things we do through some of our grant funding is we try to help with classes that they're unable to deliver. identifying the vendor that can deliver it or the training source for and then schedule and help put on the class. Since as we said in this last year, we've not been able to do a lot of training, we've looked at other things that we can do with the money. We've started to develop what we call the exercise in a box. It was an idea that Bill, as the former chairman, had put together. And we took that and we kind of upped it a little bit, and we started developing a band or a trailer that will be able to bring to the site when an organization is having a exercise and give them everything they need, from traffic control devices, signage, tents, chairs, and tables, as well as office supplies to be able to put on an exercise. We're looking forward to being able to deploy that, show it off to everybody, and hopefully get it in use early next year. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Robert. So we don't have about 12 minutes left, so I wanted to spend maybe the majority of the remaining time just having more of a general discussion on some of the Alliance highlights. And I also wanted Ben to talk about the finance chair position. It's not exactly a committee, but we have a unique project with the Community Foundation partnership there that has really been impactful this year with the COVID crisis. So Ben, I'll let you talk for a minute or so, and I can share, or a couple minutes, and I can share the Together One Region page as well. I can pull that up while you're talking if you want, or however you want to start.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great. So the project with the Community Foundation started as a conversation among the Alliance that when we have a disaster, a lot of times we have needs that just fall through the cracks because we do not have the resources to meet those in the community, either through FEMA funding or through local funding or whatever the case is. And we wanted a way for people to be able to donate locally and have an impact locally. And so, the challenge with that is obviously, as we've discussed, there's 25 different jurisdictions. And if each one of them were to go out and create a charitable organization, each one of them were to be vying for donations and then trying to distribute that would obviously be a huge undertaking. So I know it's been a number of years ago when we started this conversation. I was talking to Martha one day and she said, I have a friend over at the Community Foundation and they're kind of looking for ways to funnel some charitable giving to emergency response. Let's have a conversation. And so that's kind of how that started. And here we are a couple years later with a pretty developed relationship between PlanRVA, the Alliance, and the Community Foundation. And essentially, they created a fund for emergency response. It started out as very generic. We were prepared for whatever emergency may come. We didn't realize how quickly it would get used. COVID came upon us, and we quickly realized that there was a lot of unmet needs in the community. The Community Foundation had donors that wanted to give to help with the response, and so the COVID-19 Response Fund was born as a kind of an offshoot of this relationship that we had. To date, they have received, the fund has received $6.7 million worth of donations in total, and we've actually given out $5.8 million in donations to smaller nonprofits and organizations that over a very wide range of capabilities and tasking. So everything from feeding to housing assistance to obviously health assistance during COVID, as well as childcare and education. Really a wide range of organizations that are already in the community. They're already serving our constituents, but in this time they obviously had big gaps in their resources to be able to do what they wanted to be able to do for the committee. So you can kind of see it, as Katie's putting up here, kind of the percentages of where that money has gone and kind of what it's gone to. But basically there is a committee that's made up of Alliance members as well as members from other charitable organizations in the community that have been meeting on a weekly basis. and looking at all the applications and then making recommendations back to the Community Foundation for grants. It's been a really huge success as far as meeting those unmet needs in the community, and looking forward, we're hoping that and we're confident that in the future, whatever we may experience, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's some kind of natural disaster or a man-made disaster, whatever it may be, this relationship that we've built with the Community Foundation will continue to move on to create new funds for those particular disasters, and we'll be able to receive donations from the community and then put those funds to work back in the community to kind of meet those needs that are kind of left hanging when we, as emergency managers, are trying to kind of, that's what emergency managers do. We see problems and we fix those. We try to plug the holes as best we can with the resources that we have. And this is obviously filling one of those big holes that we had as far as funding, especially to some of the nonprofit organizations that are already in the community, already have boots on the ground, are already ready to make a difference, and they just need that funding to get the job done. So that's kind of where that was born out of that, and the finance chair position really is takes a leadership role in helping to maintain that relationship and kind of be the go-between between the Community Foundation and the Alliance, as well as with a huge help. I have to give a huge shout out to Martha and her team, Katie at PlanRVA, as they've really been a huge help in that process, from kind of giving us the idea as far as who that partner might be at the beginning, all the way through throughout this relationship. So we're just really excited about it, and we do know that there are some of these relationships that do exist in other parts of the country. As far as we know, this is pretty unique to Virginia, and we're excited about what we've been able to accomplish through it, and that we hope in the future we'll be able to do this similar with other disasters that come up. And I'll be able to answer any questions later on.
Thanks, Ben. And I wanted to add really quick too. So typically the Community Foundation for Greater Richmond only works with the Central Virginia region. So that would be maybe that dark green area that's highlighted right there on the map. And so what's been really beneficial about this partnership with the Emergency Management Alliance is that they've been able to expand their assistance and resources out to some of these smaller localities in our Alliance region that wouldn't normally have the benefit of getting maybe grant funds and stuff like that to help some of their services in the area. So that's just something that I wanted to highlight that has been, a big thing with this partnership and the success of the fund the last couple of months. We are almost at time. I know we just have a couple minutes left. We had a few more things in our agenda, but I did want to just maybe give the last couple minutes for any of the panelists to kind of talk about ways they feel like they've benefited, the localities have benefited, or stories or examples from this partnership, and maybe anything else you might want to share about your experience and what you've enjoyed, or things like that, highlights maybe.
This is Ben again. I think I'd just like to reiterate, I think stuff that's already been said, but maybe just reiterate that after the funding went away from the federal government, the dedicated funding, I think we all as members recognize the value of the relationship that had been built through that process. And the money that I think had been alluded to earlier, I think Katie had talked about the $279,000. That's competitive funds, so we have to compete with all the other jurisdictions across Virginia to receive those funds, and we have to do that every year on a rotating basis to maintain the operations of the Alliance, from everything from the assistance with the positions there at PlanRVA, as well as all the other projects that are done. So I know each and every jurisdiction that's a member and has participated has greatly benefited from the relationship. I know we here in Hopewell certainly have benefited from the relationship for the entire duration of this, the lifetime of the Alliance, and we hope to continue to going forward in the future.
Katie, I would quickly add that it's not very often in the past that smaller localities or even some of the larger localities at the social services ground level personnel really did work, as Bill indicated, in silos, and they were really dependent upon their local budgets, supporting whatever programs or plans they had for the clients that they may see. I think it's been really beneficial for that level of workforce member to understand that there is a regional group that kind of has their back and is looking for funding opportunities that will enhance their capabilities of providing trainings, information, and collaboration ongoing well into the future. So, we've had some significant improvement in the participation of the smaller counties like Brunswick County, Amelia County, Powhatan County, that typically kind of forge their own way for such a long period of time. So I think that's benefited the region as a whole.
Thanks, Paul.
I just would like to extend first a personal thank you to each of you and all of the emergency managers from around the region. When I joined the PlanRVA team about 5 years ago, I was so excited, and you've heard me say this a number of times before, but I was so excited to hear about this partnership because it really is unique in Virginia and I think across the country, that you all spend so much of your time working together to be able to leverage the resources, the human capacity in the region, and also the financial capacity. And it's encouraging as a resident and as a citizen of the region to know that there are these people who are waking up every day thinking about our safety, the opportunities that we have to be resilient in our community, and to be able to recover when disaster strikes. So thank you so much for what you do. We really appreciate it. I know that you are often behind the scenes playing that backstage hand, and it really is appreciated that the work that you all do every day keeps us safe and prevents things from many of us who walk around as regular citizens, even knowing the risks that may have existed. From an organizational perspective, I'll just reiterate, we are so fortunate to have the partnership with the Emergency Management Alliance, and really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. It has created opportunities for our organization to be able to grow in many different ways, and to be able to leverage the spirit that you have of that silo busting. So thank you for that as well. I just wanted to go back to a couple of things that I heard today. Kate, thank you so much for calling out, that attention to the ability to leverage people and resources. And I think, Paul, you mentioned that as well. And Ben's story about the Community Foundation partnership and our ability to be able to channel local resources to local needs, I think are great examples of how the Alliance has worked and thought creatively to be able to anticipate and then meet needs when they come in our community. So thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. Our tagline for PlanRVA is that it's better together. And I think that the Emergency Management Alliance couldn't have been a more appropriate partnership to be able to highlight on our inaugural webinar. I think all of you gave examples of how that better together really comes to life in our region. And I look forward to the next webinar. And I hope you all will agree to join us again so that we can talk about the continuing work of emergency preparedness. So thanks everyone for being here today. We really appreciate it.